My wife left me 2 weeks after our wedding because her ex found out he had terminal cancer and she wanted to be there for him. When I first met Sarah, it felt like fate. A warm summer evening, the air thick with the scent of grilled meat and fresh-cut grass. It was a friend's backyard barbecue in 2018, nothing extraordinary, just the usual mix of laughter, beer, and casual conversations. But then she walked in, wearing a sundress that caught the golden sunset, her eyes scanning the crowd with a quiet confidence. We clicked instantly. There was no awkward small talk, no forced laughter. Just an effortless connection, like we had been waiting for this moment our entire lives. I remember the way she smiled when I mentioned my guilty pleasure, watching 90 Day Fiancé. Instead of teasing me, she laughed and admitted she was obsessed with it too. That was it. That was the moment I knew. From that night on, we were inseparable. We built something solid, something real. Our values aligned effortlessly. Family, ambition, adventure. We both dreamed of traveling, of building a life together that didn't just revolve around routine. Our relationship was the kind people envied. Not because of grand gestures, but because it felt easy, natural, like it was always meant to be. The proposal. A moment of perfection. It was during a hiking trip when I asked her to marry me. We had planned it for months, a weekend getaway to the mountains where the sky felt close enough to touch. I carried the ring in my pocket the entire time, my fingers brushing against the cool metal every few minutes, reminding myself it was real. We reached the summit just as the sun was setting, the sky painted in fiery oranges and deep purples. It was just us, standing on top of the world, breathless from the climb. I turned to her, my heart pounding. "Sarah," I started, my voice steady but my hands shaking, "I don't ever want to climb another mountain without you." Her eyes widened, her lips parting slightly as she realized what was happening. Before she could say anything, I dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded before even finding her voice. "Yes. Yes, 1,000,000 times yes." We laughed, we cried. The wind howled around us, but for that moment it felt like the world had gone silent. Just us, wrapped in the kind of happiness that people search for their entire lives. A wedding straight out of a dream. From that day on, life felt like a fairy tale. We spent a year planning our wedding, making sure every detail reflected us. No over-the-top extravagance, just something elegant, intimate, and meaningful. We chose a vineyard, rolling green hills stretching for miles, the scent of ripening grapes hanging in the air. The ceremony took place at golden hour, the sun dipping just enough to cast everything in a warm, honey-like glow. Sarah walked down the aisle, a vision in lace and satin, her eyes locked onto mine as if the entire world had faded away. When we said our vows, my voice nearly broke. How do you put into words a love that feels too big for language? I promised to stand by you, through every adventure and every storm. To love you not just on our best days, but on the ones where love feels like a choice we have to make. And I will always choose you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She squeezed my hands as she whispered her own vows, words I still hear in my head even now. I will love you through every season, through every joy and every heartbreak. You are my home. We kissed. The crowd erupted into cheers, and just like that, we were husband and wife. The honeymoon, a taste of forever. Greece was everything we imagined, whitewashed buildings clinging to cliffs, the sea stretching endlessly beyond the horizon, the scent of salt and sun-baked stone in the air. We spent our days exploring hidden beaches, eating fresh seafood under starlit skies, and talking about our future. We made plans. A home with a big kitchen where we'd cook together on Sunday mornings. A dog, maybe 2. Children, one day. But not yet. We wanted to live first, to see the world, to soak in every second of this happiness before adding more to it. Everything was perfect. A future that felt certain. Coming back home, we were ready. Ready for a life filled with adventure, 4 lazy Sundays in bed, for the quiet moments that made up a lifetime. We moved into a beautiful apartment with tall windows that let in the morning light just right. We furnished it together, choosing things that told our story. A painting from our honeymoon, a shelf filled with books we wanted to read to each other. For 5 years we built something unshakable, or so I thought. There were no warning signs. No cracks in the foundation. Just love, steady and certain. If you had asked me then, I would have told you with absolute certainty, Sarah and I were forever. But forever is a fragile thing. And some storms come without warning. 2 months after our honeymoon, when we were still settling into the rhythm of married life, the bomb dropped. Jake, Sarah's ex-boyfriend, the guy she had dated before me, was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. Came out of nowhere. One day, he was just another person from her past, a name I barely thought about, and the next, he was all she could talk about. I first heard about it through Sarah's best friend, Megan. She was always in Sarah's ear, whispering opinions, stirring things up in ways that never seemed harmful until now. He doesn't have much time left, Megan told Sarah one evening over the phone, sitting in our living room like she lived there. You should reach out. He was a huge part of your life. I was sitting across the room, barely paying attention, assuming this conversation would pass like so many others. But Sarah's face changed. I saw it. A flicker of something, pity, nostalgia, maybe something else, crossed her features. I don't know, she hesitated. I looked up then. Sarah, why would you even consider this? He's your ex. Megan shot me a look, the kind that made it clear she thought I was being insensitive. It's not about the past, she said, as if she was explaining something obvious to a child. It's about being there for someone who's dying. Sarah didn't text him that night, at least not that I saw. But something had been planted in her mind, and once it took root, it spread like poison. Days later, she brought it up again. Jake reached out, she said, her voice carefully casual. I put my coffee down, already feeling the beginnings of something dark creeping in. And he wanted to talk. It's not a big deal. I knew better. There's no such thing as just talking with an ex, especially one you used to love. And especially not when you're newly married to someone else. But I didn't push. Maybe I should have. At first, it was just the occasional message. Something about an old inside joke. A memory from college. Then it turned into late-night texts. I noticed the way she would angle her phone away from me, the way she'd smile at the screen with that quiet, faraway look, the kind that used to be reserved for me. I asked her about it once. She brushed it off. Jake's dying, she said, like that was supposed to justify everything. I'm just trying to be there for him. Wouldn't you want someone to do the same for you? That was how she framed it. Like she was being a saint. Like she was the only one who could make his final days easier. I should have seen it coming. One night, she came home later than usual, her face tight with something unspoken. She barely looked at me as she sat down, wringing her hands. I need to talk to you, she said. That feeling in my gut turned to stone. I need to be with Jake. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, waiting for her to realize what she had just said. You need to be with Jake? I repeated, my voice low and controlled, though I could feel the fury burning underneath. She swallowed hard. He doesn't have much time left, and I can't just ignore that. I can't sit here pretending like it doesn't matter. I have to do this. The way she spoke, the conviction in her voice, it was like she had already made up her mind. Like she had decided I was an obstacle, something inconvenient standing in the way of her noble sacrifice. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep myself from saying something I couldn't take back. So what, Sarah? You're leaving me for a dying man? It's not like that, she said quickly. Then what is it like? I shot back. She didn't answer. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. Let me make this simple for you. You have two choices. Stay here, with me, as my wife. Or go to him, and don't come back. For a moment, she hesitated. I saw it, the flicker of doubt, the part of her that still remembered the life we had built, the future we had planned. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. I have to go, she said. And just like that, she chose him. Not our marriage. Not me. Jake. I felt humiliated, like a fool who had just been discarded without a second thought. My wife, the woman I had promised forever to, was walking out the door for another man. And not just any man. A man she used to love. A man whose arms she had once fallen into before she ever met me. The worst part? She made it seem like I was the selfish one. Like I was the obstacle in the way of her doing the right thing. She packed her bags without shedding a tear. There was no apology, no regret. Just a quiet determination, like she was making a choice that had been set in stone from the beginning. When she left, the silence in our home was deafening. I sat on the couch, staring at the door she had just walked through, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. How had we gone from a dream wedding, a perfect honeymoon, a lifetime of plans, to this? She didn't even fight for us. She didn't hesitate. Sarah, the woman I had built my life around, had just walked away like I was nothing more than a chapter in a book she had finished reading. I thought about the vows she had made. I will love you through every season, through every joy and every heartbreak. You are my home. Lies. Every word a lie. She had promised me forever. And in the end, all it took was a single text thread with an X for her to throw it all away. The email came on a Wednesday morning. A cold, impersonal message sitting in my inbox like a final slap in the face. Subject, our divorce. I stared at the words, reading them over and over, waiting for them to sting a little less. They didn't. Sarah had decided that even ending our marriage should be effortless for her. No discussion, no face-to-face conversation, just a neatly worded email asking for an amicable split. I hope we can handle this maturely. There's no need for hostility. I just think this is for the best. For her best. She made it sound like we had simply drifted apart, like this was some mutual decision between two people who just weren't meant to be. As if she hadn't walked out on our marriage, left me standing in the wreckage while she played savior to her dying ex-boyfriend. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. Instead, I sat there, fingers gripping the edge of my desk, feeling the slow, simmering humiliation settle in. She had left me for another man. And now she was asking me to make it easy for her. And the worst part? Some people actually thought I should. The backlash came fast. Friends, people I had laughed with, drank with, trusted, started choosing sides. And not mine. She's just doing what she feels is right, Megan told me, her tone dripping with that same holier-than-thou attitude she always had. Jake is dying. She's just trying to be there for him. Can you really blame her? I wanted to laugh. Blame her? For walking out on her husband? For throwing away our marriage like it was some mistake she had finally corrected? She made a commitment to me, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Megan sighed, like she was talking to a child. She was in an impossible situation. No, she wasn't. She chose to leave. She chose to break our vows. And now she wanted to be let off the hook, to walk away without consequences, without guilt. Some of my so-called friends started echoing Megan's words. The messages came in waves, some pretending to be neutral, others outright accusing me of being heartless. You should be more understanding. She's just trying to help someone in need. Jake is dying. How can you be so bitter? Bitter. That's what they called me. Not a betrayed husband. Not a man whose wife had walked out on him 2 months after promising forever. Just bitter. Fine. Let them think that. Let them play the sympathy card for her while I was left picking up the shattered pieces of my life. I wasn't going to beg for loyalty. I stopped answering texts, stopped explaining myself. If they couldn't see the problem with what she had done, then they weren't the kind of people I needed in my life anyway. The house was mine. That was non-negotiable. I refused to let her take it, refused to let her erase me from it like I was just a placeholder in her life. She left. She gave up the right to anything we built together the moment she packed her bags. And Max? My dog? That wasn't even a discussion. She had abandoned both of us, and I wasn't about to let her come back for the things that made her feel less guilty. The day I signed the divorce papers was the day I let go of the last piece of her. I stopped looking at old pictures, stopped torturing myself with memories of what we used to be. Instead, I poured everything into me. I worked longer hours, put in extra time at the gym, turned every ounce of frustration into sweat and muscle. I cut out the people who didn't stand by me. I stopped feeling guilty for putting myself first. 3 months later, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I was in the best shape of my life. My body wasn't just stronger, it was a testament to the hell I had walked through and survived. I traded in my old car for a new truck, something that felt like mine. Something that didn't carry the weight of shared memories, of road trips with Sarah, of the life we used to plan. I started dating again. At first, it felt strange, like I was stepping into a world I had forgotten how to navigate. But then, slowly, I realized something. I was free. Free from the weight of her choices. Free from the humiliation of being the man she left behind. Sarah had walked out of our marriage thinking she was choosing something bigger, something more meaningful. But in the end, I was the one who won. I had rebuilt myself. And she? She was just a woman who once promised forever and then proved she never meant it. The call came out of nowhere. My phone buzzed late at night, Sarah's name lighting up the screen. I almost ignored it. She hadn't called me in months, hadn't even tried to. The last time we had spoken, it was through lawyers. The last time I had seen her, she was walking out of our home with her bags packed, choosing him over me. But something about the way the phone kept ringing, the way her name just sat there, sent a strange feeling crawling up my spine. I picked up. At first, all I heard was ragged breathing. Then, a sob. "Hello?" I said, my voice sharp, already irritated. She gasped like she had been drowning. "Oh my God," she choked out. "Oh my God." I sat up. "Sarah, what the hell is going on?" More sobs. She was hysterical. "It was all a lie," she wailed. "Jake, he never had cancer." Silence. I blinked. "What?" "He lied," she screamed. "He faked it. The diagnosis, the treatments, the whole damn thing. I gave up everything, I left you, for nothing. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just sat there, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles went white. She kept talking, the words spilling out in frantic, breathless sobs. I saw his messages, his emails. He was never sick. He made up everything. He forged medical reports, he shaved his head. He even pretended to have side effects from chemotherapy. All of it was fake. He just wanted me back. I let out a slow breath, trying to process what she was saying. Jake never had cancer. The man she had left me for, the man she had thrown away our marriage for, had lied to her. He had manipulated her, played on her emotions, dragged her into his little game, and she had fallen for it completely. I should have felt pity, maybe even sympathy, but all I felt was a cold, quiet satisfaction settling in my chest. Let me guess, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. You confronted him? Another sob. Yes, she whispered. I asked him how he could do this to me, how he could lie about dying just to get me back. And do you know what he did? I already knew the answer. He laughed, she choked out. He just stood there and laughed at me. And then he said, well, it worked, didn't it? I closed my eyes. He wasn't wrong. It had worked. Sarah had believed him. She had chosen him. She had left me. And now? Now, she was standing in the ruins of her own life, realizing she had burned everything down for a lie. He never loved me, she whispered, voice cracking. He was just playing a game. He's been dating someone else this whole time. Jessica. They've been together for months. He's moving to California with her. He was never planning to stay. I was just some stupid thing he needed to win. The humiliation in her voice was thick. It bled through every word, every sob, every broken breath. I pictured it in my mind, Sarah, standing in the wreckage of her own choices, looking at the life she had abandoned, the husband she had betrayed, the love she had thrown away, only to find herself discarded, replaced, mocked. She thought she had been making some noble sacrifice, thought she was choosing something meaningful, and in the end, she was nothing more than a joke to the man she had ruined everything for. She gave up everything for nothing. She gasped through the phone. I don't know what to do. I have nothing. I lost everything. I lost you? I let out a cold, humorless laugh. Yeah, I said, my voice flat. You did. She sobbed harder. I made a mistake, she whispered. I should have, God, I should have never left. I should have never listened to Megan. I should have never. I cut her off. You made a choice, Sarah, I said, my voice sharp, cold. You chose him over me. You chose to walk out that door, to leave our marriage, to throw everything away. And now that you've realized you were just another one of Jake's little games, you expect what, exactly? She sniffled. I don't know. I clenched my jaw. You don't get to know. You don't get to run back here just because your little fantasy shattered. That's not how this works. She let out a strangled sob. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. You made your bed, I said. Now lie in it. Then I hung up. For the first time in months, I felt free. Sarah didn't take silence for an answer. The morning after our phone call, the texts started. At first, they were desperate apologies, long paragraphs about how sorry she was, how she had been manipulated, how she had been blind. She swore up and down that she had never stopped loving me, that Jake's lies had tricked her, that if she could take it all back, she would. I didn't respond. Then, the messages changed. She tried nostalgia, bringing up old memories, reminding me of our wedding, our honeymoon, the life we had planned. Remember the vineyard? The way we danced under the lights? God, I miss that night. I miss us. I still didn't respond. That's when she got bold. She started showing up. First, at my gym. She happened to be there, acting surprised when she saw me, pretending it was some kind of accident. But the second she opened her mouth, the desperation bled through. Can we talk? Please, just for a minute. I ignored her and walked right past. Then, it was my job. She waited outside my office, standing by my truck like some lost, pathetic ghost of the past. I saw her from the window, pacing, chewing on her nails, fidgeting like she was owed a conversation. I stayed inside. The worst part? She went to my mother. I got the call late one evening. Honey, my mom started, hesitant. Sarah stopped by the house today. I shut my eyes. What did she want? She's a mess, my mom sighed. Begging for forgiveness, saying she made the biggest mistake of her life. I gritted my teeth. Did you tell her to leave? She looks so broken, sweetheart. I shook my head, feeling my patience snap. She's not broken, Mom. She's just pissed she played herself and lost. There was a pause. Then, quietly, do you want me to tell her not to come back? Yes, I said. And if she does, slam the door in her face? Sarah wasn't sorry. She was just drowning in her own humiliation. I finally agreed to meet her. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted it over. We met at a small coffee shop. She had picked the place, one of our old favorites, as if the setting would somehow manipulate me into remembering the good times. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her together. When she saw me, her eyes went glossy with unshed tears. I sat down. I didn't greet her. I didn't smile. She took a shaky breath. Thank you for coming. I said nothing. She fidgeted, her fingers tapping against the cup. I needed to see you. To talk. Still, I said nothing. She swallowed hard. I know I messed up. I know I ruined everything. But Jake, he lied to me, Opie. He tricked me. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. And... She blinked, caught off guard. And... I tilted my head. You think that changes anything? Tears welled in her eyes. It proves my loyalty, she blurted out. I actually laughed. A cold, humorless sound. Your loyalty? She nodded frantically. I believed in love. In the idea that you don't abandon someone who's dying. That's why I did what I did. But he lied, Opie. He wasn't dying. So you see? I was tricked. I stared at her, letting the words sink in, watching the pathetic hope flicker in her eyes. Then I leaned forward. If Jake was actually dying, I said slowly, my voice razor-sharp, would you still be with him? Her lips parted slightly. She had no answer. Because we both knew the truth. If Jake had actually been dying, she wouldn't be sitting across from me right now, pretending to be loyal. She would still be by his side, playing the devoted martyr, holding his hand in his final moments. She didn't love me. She just hated losing. Her face crumbled. No, I cut her off. Don't lie. Not to me. Not again. Tears streamed down her face. Please, she whispered. Just one more chance. I know I don't deserve it. I know I destroyed everything. But I love you. I never stopped. And I will spend forever making it up to you. I stood up. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I stared down at her, the woman who once promised forever and then threw it away like it meant nothing. The man you married, I said, my voice ice-cold, died the day you chose Jake. Then, I turned around and walked away. I didn't look back. And this time I knew, neither would she. It was late, too late for visitors. Max, my dog, had already picked up on something outside. His ears perked up, a low growl rumbling from his throat. I was about to call it a night when I heard the knock. Firm. Repeated. Desperate. I pulled the door open, already annoyed, then froze. Sarah stood there. She looked different. Pale. Nervous. Her hands were clasped together, her fingers twisting anxiously. But the first thing I noticed, the one thing I couldn't ignore, was the slight swell of her stomach. She was pregnant. Every muscle in my body locked up. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just stared at her, waiting for her to explain why the hell she was standing at my door months after I had made it clear she was nothing more than a bad memory. She swallowed hard. Can I come in? No, I said, my voice flat. Her face tightened, but she nodded, like she expected that answer. I need to talk to you, she said, shifting uncomfortably. It's important. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Say it. She took a breath, then looked me dead in the eye. I'm pregnant, she said. And it's yours. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Instead, I let the words settle, let the weight of them sink deep into my bones. She had been gone for months, begged for forgiveness, been rejected. And now, here she was, throwing one last grenade into my life. I did a paternity test, she added quickly, like she needed me to believe her before I could even open my mouth. You don't have to take my word for it. I brought the results. She reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope, and held it out to me with trembling fingers. I didn't take it. Instead, I stared at her, my voice slow and measured. When? Her throat bobbed. I'm 14 weeks. I did the math in my head. 14 weeks ago. That was right before she left. Right before she threw everything away for Jake. And now she was back, trying to drag me into this. A storm raged inside me, but my voice stayed eerily calm. And if Jake hadn't lied? I asked. She blinked. What? If Jake had actually been dying, I said, my eyes locked onto hers, would you have ever told me? Her lips parted, but nothing came out. That silence told me everything. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head. This is insane. Sarah took a step closer. I know, she whispered. I know I don't deserve your trust. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But this isn't about us anymore. She hesitated, then looked down, placing a hand over her stomach. This is about our child. Our child. The words sent a sharp, foreign panic through my chest. I wanted to tell her to leave. To walk away just like she had months ago, to let me close this door and erase her from my life for good. But I couldn't. Because if this was real, if this was actually my child, then I couldn't turn my back on them. Not on them. Sarah saw the hesitation in my eyes, and she pushed forward. I don't expect anything from you, she said quickly. I need you to know. I need you to be involved, whatever that looks like. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to focus. First, I said, my voice tight, I'm getting another paternity test. Sarah nodded frantically. Of course. I figured you would. Second, I continued, my tone sharper, we're going to set legal boundaries. This isn't just some let's figure it out situation. I'm getting a lawyer. We're going to do this, right? Her face flickered with something, hurt maybe, but she just nodded again. Okay. Then, a thought hit me like a truck. Lisa. My stomach twisted. Lisa, the woman who had nothing to do with this mess. The woman who had come into my life after Sarah burned it to the ground. The woman who had stood by me, helped me move forward. How the hell was I supposed to tell her this? My jaw tightened. You need to leave, I said abruptly. Sarah blinked, caught off guard. What? I straightened up, looking her dead in the eye. I need to process this. And you don't get to stand here and act like we're in this together. You lost that privilege? Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. She had made her choices. And now I had to make mine. Without another word, I shut the door in her face. And for the first time since she had come back into my life, I let myself feel the weight of what had just happened. This wasn't over. Not even close.